Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, sit back, and let's chat about the energies of the day through astrology, human design, and the gene keys. I hope everybody is doing well this morning. It is so dark right now. I feel like I should still be in bed, but here I am, up and at 'em since about 6 a.m. Amazing, because just another 6 months from now, and it's going to be bright and shiny about this time of the day. And that always just kind of creeps me out that there's such difference between the two different seasons, right? How long the days are in the summer and how short they are in the winter, and how quickly the darkness sets in. I mean, I swear I no sooner get done working and I go out and I look and it's, getting on to darkness. So hopefully the light returns soon, as we know it always does. Well, let's see. This morning, I'm going to play with a new gadget I noticed. Let's see if I can bring something up. I'm going to first talk about the fact that the moon is in Aquarius today. So let's see if it actually shows what I just put up there. Let me close this. Of course not. It was supposed to crawl across the screen. Okay, that one wants to work. So let's do this one. Aha, Pluto. That's not the one I wanted to talk about though. So let's hide that one again. Let's do this one. There we go. It's working. Woohoo. So I did not know that I could do this, but this morning I'm sitting here looking at, I don't know. I don't even know what got me to do it. Most likely because somehow the back end of the program I'm using didn't look right. So I thought, oh, there must be something different, that something's changed. Sure enough, something had changed. They'd added this thing called agenda, which I think has been there before, but there's this new thing that you can crawl across the screen. And I like that. So today we're talking about the fact the moon is in Aquarius. And if you didn't hear me say that, you can certainly see it crawling across the screen. I love new little toys like that. It's just great. Good morning, Mimi. Lots of clouds here, she says as well. I'm not even sure it's the clouds, although I'm sure that has an impact too. But I mean, up until like 5 minutes ago, it looked like it was dark out there. And it was really dark. Good morning, Colleen. It's good to see you too. I don't know. There's something about January. Maybe it's the mix of coming down from the holiday season and, all of the craziness that is around the holidays. And then you plop yourself into January and it's just like nothing, right? There's nothing to look forward to. It's dark, it's cold, dreary. So we have to do things to buoy ourselves up, right? So thank you for joining me this morning and hopefully buoying yourself up. Good morning, Carmel, whichever way. She says, good evening. So wherever she is, it must be Europe or Asia, somewhere where we are at the opposite end of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. So today the moon is in Aquarius all day. It is in a sign of taking and looking at things in new ways, of maybe, like my little giraffe, turning things upside down and looking at them from a completely different point of view, and being able to be more inventive and to think outside of the box. And we often talk about, thinking outside of the box. What does that really mean? It means something like what Albert Einstein said, is that we cannot solve a problem from the same level from which it was created, meaning the same level of consciousness that created it. So when the moon is in Aquarius, we have this opportunity where we can kind of rise up and or move into a new state of consciousness in order to see things in a different way. So if you've been struggling with a problem, or if I just saw an orb fly by in my room. That's funny. So if you've been struggling with a problem or struggling with something that you can't find the solution to, take a step back and look at it from a different viewpoint, right? Because you may be able then to see how it is that you can be inventive and create a new way, a new answer to the old problem that you've been dealing with. So when we end up, she's in Ireland. Carmel is in Ireland. Well, I remember that now. That's right, because presumably I'm going to Ireland sometime this year and we're going to connect. right? So that would be awesome. I heard Carmel that there was one trip that was going to be in May, and I think there is another one in September. In May, I'm going to Vegas for my granddaughter's 16th birthday, so it'll have to be September that I take that trip. So be looking for you then. Good morning, Lynn. Yes, think outside the box insights are definitely called for. Indeed. I mean, we have, when you look around the world, when you look out into the outer world, there are some very definite problems, problems that we've had for a long time. It's not like immigration, just to use an example from our country, is something new. It's something every president has struggled with, from the birth of the nation all the way down, and different presidents and different government leaders have dealt with this in different ways. The one that we have now just seems to be a pretty defiant way of taking a look at immigration. And, I think it's high time that we look at things from a new way. Building a wall is based on the old. It's based on the old ways, right? And it isn't going to serve us in a new world. It isn't going to serve us in a new world at all. And I think part of the reason that he finds traction in this idea of a wall, and not traction with most of America, because I look at the polls, it's like 60% of America not for the wall, and 30% of America maybe want the wall, which would be his base, and maybe 10% that they either aren't sure or they don't have an opinion about a wall. So it's interesting that here we have, this big dichotomy between what he, as the leader of our government, thinks that we want versus the things that we actually want. And it is this idea that, the problem is the same, but we need to come up with new solutions. And that's the idea here with the moon in Aquarius. Any problem can be taken a look at in a new way, turned upside down, and looked at in the higher consciousness level, and not so much from the lower consciousness level. The only reason that we would want a wall is because we've devolved into fear of our neighbors down south, or people who've created a false fear about terrorists and et cetera, to get their agenda pushed through. So we all have to then rise to that occasion to be able to see things differently. And I task myself with this all the time. Of course, I have Jupiter in Aquarius. That makes it maybe easier for me, but I'm always looking at the higher expression of something. What is a higher way? I'm not saying I have the answer, certainly not, but I can certainly see how it is possible that if we looked at this from a different point of view, we could create a different outcome without having to devolve into the way of old thinking, which is a path of fear. And it's really interesting to me because there's so much going on in terms of the human design template at the moment. We're in this midst of an evolutionary leap that isn't planned or scheduled, if you will, to take place until 2025, 2024, which happens to be right about the time that Pluto moves into Aquarius. And the planet Pluto has moved into an interesting gate, which is another one of the topics we're going to take up today. But we can all begin by looking at things in that different manner. Today, the moon is also in a very positive relationship to Jupiter, which means that it is easier for us to be optimistic about how we can find new solutions to the old problems. Just make sure, because anytime we're dealing with Jupiter, we are dealing with the possibility of expanding beyond normal or beyond what's sustainable. So we want to make sure that we're staying within boundaries, if you will, but not holding ourselves so strictly to them, right? We want to be able to grow, but we want to be able to have that supported and sustainable. So interesting mix today from the moon, and all day long the moon is in Aquarius. So this takes us even into the evening, where here in the United States, at least, the president will be addressing the country about immigration and his wall. So let's see what else is going on. Let me see if I can play with my, let's hide that. And Go back to my agenda. And now I want to switch to something else today that is happening. No, that is not the one I just chose. Hide that one. This one. Okay, well, I'm not liking this toy. It takes too much of my time. Good morning, Linda. It's good to see you. Good morning, Debbie. Ellis O'Connell, new. I love that. Nice to see you. Or Eilis. Is it Ailis? Ellis? I don't know, but hold on here. Let me click off this agenda and then click it back on and see if I can show this one. There we go. The big news of the day, Mercury squaring Mars. Remember, a square, anytime we have these planets, by the way, that say sextile or square or conjunct or opposing or any of the other ones that I can come up with, those are the relationships between, that word describes the relationship between the two planets. So today we have Mercury in the sign of Capricorn, we have Mars in the sign of Aries, and those two signs square one another. They are 90 degrees from one another in a chart. A 90-degree angle between planets is spelling out a challenge to us. It's like the gauntlet has been dropped in front of us, and how are we going to rise to the occasion of working through these energies? So when we look at what's being affected today, we have Mercury, which rules communication, what we're talking about, what we're saying, and how we say it, and also the mind, right? And from the mind, how it is that we traverse from the mind to the voice and speak what is on our mind. Mars, of course, is the planet that rules action. So we have a couple of possibilities that crop up today. And by the way, I want to clear up something, because a lot of times when I'm talking, like today, Mercury square Mars comes to a perfection. Perfection means that it's exactly in the 90-degree relationship to one another. So for example, let's see here, Mercury is sitting at 5 degrees of Capricorn, and Mars is sitting at 5 degrees of Aries. That's called perfected because they're each at the same degree. But there's also something called applying. And applying means where the faster moving planet is applying pressure or moving into the relationship with the other planet. So for the last couple of days, Mercury has been in an applying relationship to the planet Mars. So that means that even though today it's perfect, some of these energies have been playing out already, right? Depending on your personal chart, depending on the situation that you're being tasked with in your own life. So some of these things that we're talking about today may already have happened to you, or you may have seen evidence of it already. And even after today, there will be another day or two of the energy of separating, right? So we have the applying when the faster moving planet's moving inward to the slower moving planet. And then we have the separating, or the perfection when they're exact, and then the separating when they're moving, when the faster planet is moving away. I hope that makes sense to everybody, because that's why we can all experience these energies over the course or span of time. And why, someone out there may say, well, yeah, but that already happened yesterday where I got angry and irritable and I blew up at somebody, where I'm telling you that it's today. Does that make sense to everybody, right? It's sort of this time span of things coming and then a little bit of time while it's going, kind of like the retrogrades, right? We always talk about the shadow of the retrograde and then the retrograde itself. And then in Suzanne Fulmer's her words, it's retroshade, right? So we have the applying, the perfecting, and then the separating. And that happens with these planets as they're moving through and coming into relationship with one another. So Mercury had been applying to a square, a challenge to the planet Mars. I saw a great example of this morning, where it was a weatherman in New York City or New York somewhere, who probably in his everyday life was used to referring to a park as Martin Luther Coon Park, and ends up accidentally during a Mercury square Mars blurting that same phrase out while he's on air and then losing his job over that racial kind of slur. So there's this thing that goes on right now with these two planets that are squaring with one another, where there's very little filter between what's going on up here in the mind and how it comes out from the mouth, right? So we want to be very careful about what we're saying, particularly when we're in polite company, when we're at work, perhaps, and when we are triggered by what is an irritating sort of transit, because Mercury squaring Mars is a bit irritating. It's sort of touchy, right? There's this touchy, irritable feeling that we have, and it's not all the time. Like I noticed in my own self yesterday that I had these peaks of irritability and then it would go away. And then I would be triggered by something else and it would go away. Not ever to the point where I was just like, strangling someone mad. It's not like that at all. But there were these moments in time where I was irritated by something I couldn't get done, by words not coming when I wanted to talk. Yesterday morning, remember, I was trying to get to the word contribution and I couldn't get it to come out, right? That's kind of what we're dealing with Mercury squaring Mars. Now, on the other hand, there's also those reactive energies that we're dealing with here. So some people, when they're triggered by something someone says, may knee-jerk react, right? And do something that they may regret later, or that's very difficult to come back from. So today is one of those days, right? So yesterday, today, and likely tomorrow, we'll be dealing with the same kind of thing where you want to be very careful that you don't just react, taking action from that knee jerk because somebody pissed you off, or, any number of things that can happen, right? So stay calm and cool and collected. Use consciousness, right? Breathe before you speak. Give yourself a moment before you take action, before you do something or say something that you're going to regret later. Now, also, yay, Debbie, thank you for letting me know. She said her book arrived yesterday. Of course, we're talking about the Energy Almanac, which is the project that I was working on earlier or late in 2018, getting the astrology written for the next 12 months. Debbie, I would love to hear your opinion on it. And, as you get a chance to use it, give any feedback would be welcomed by both Tam and I and the whole of the team that worked on that book. Mimi says, hence 45 spouting off tonight, yesterday and tomorrow, possible foot and mouth. Oh, yes. Everybody may have foot and mouth disease this week, or today, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, at least. Maybe even a little bit into Thursday. So just watch what you say and watch how you say it. If you're irritable, maybe it's best to remove yourself from the situation. If you're triggered by something, just don't say anything. Now, here's another one of the byproducts that happens when we have Mercury squaring Mars, and that is there's a higher than normal potential for accidents to happen. Mars rules things like metal, right? So this is kind of funny because both my daughter and I, we were making potato soup on Saturday night. She kept cutting herself or getting herself stuck on things and, her fingers were hurting. Well, I've been doing that. The last day or so, I don't know how many little cuts on my fingers. And I'm like, what the heck? I've been shuffling paper, so they might be little paper cuts, but they're annoying. And then, of course, you wash your hands and so little things like accidents can be very prominent now. They can also be big accidents because what do we drive? Cars. And cars are metal ruled by Mars. Mercury taking you a little bit maybe out of your mind. Maybe you're processing this angry exchange that you had with someone and you're not paying attention, or the anger translates into road rage. Or worse yet, this isn't you that this is happening to, but someone else, and they're totally unconscious because they didn't watch the Meta Cafe this morning, and they are the ones that are carrying out road rage or creating accidents from a place of unconsciousness. So today's very good day. Stay very conscious. When you're behind the wheel, you know how you get road hypnotism, right? You've been on this road a million times, so you know how to get there. You got to stay conscious, right? just be there in your body. So it's the mind, it's our communication, and it's the actions that we take that can be affected today by Mercury squaring Mars. And luckily, Mercury moves fairly quickly, so this isn't long term, right? It's just the next day or so, and that will pass through. It also means that we need to be very aware of what other people are saying, how they're saying it, and whether or not they're speaking from a place of consciousness themselves, right? A lot of words are going to get bandied around tonight. I guarantee it. I guarantee in your personal life, there's going to be a lot of thoughts and ideas being bandied around. That doesn't necessarily make them correct. And it does mean that people are coming at you from a more emotional state. So be aware, just be aware. Think beyond that, right? Look at the bigger picture. Don't look at the narrow view that any one person may want you to see from. Take the bigger view, including me. Don't just take my word for things. Look at your own life and see against the backdrop of your own life how these things are playing out, how these energies are playing out. Well, that sucks, Debbie, or doesn't suck, such as the case may be. She says her vacuum cleaner quit yesterday. Does that count? Oh, that's funny. Amy, good morning to you. Hey, my live stream today was about being patient and breathing before taking action. Total synchrony. Absolutely. Patience is likely on a thin string today. So the best way to have patience then is to breathe. Meditate even. I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I didn't make it as a New Year's resolution because those never work. As soon as I say resolution, it's like out my mind and out the window, and I don't want to do it. But I had agreed to myself that because this was a year that favored building a spiritual foundation or, concretizing, making it more stable, or a foundation that was built on spirit more stable and stronger, I decided that I was going to go through the Course in Miracles coursework, the lessons. There's 365 lessons. I thought, wow, that's great. I'll just do that for this year and have it form the foundation of my spiritual practice for this year. I'm adding that to what I, already do on a daily basis. And yesterday I found myself just like at the end of my rope, this Mercury square Mars also already affecting me. And I went, I'm going to get my Course in Miracles workout, and it's going to be a great time right now to do that work. And wow, what a difference that made, right? And it just happened to be lesson for day 6, I think it was, that I was on. And it was about, I am never upset for the reason I think I am. And I went, okay, I got it, right? So there are always ways that we can self-soothe, I guess you could call it, when we get triggered by something in the outer world, whether it's small or big, it doesn't matter. Breath, patience, breathing, patience, meditation, compassion, all of these things helpful to get you through. Debbie, I don't know what to do about your vacuum cleaner, but yeah, I mean, that could be kind of a moon in Aquarius thing too, because the planet that rules Aquarius is Uranus, and that was unexpected and funny. Debbie says, but I had a huge hawk land on my fence today. Anyone? Ooh, hawk is the messenger. Let's see. Debbie, did you get out your deck of cards, right? Your deck of cards. Let's look at what hawk means. That's happened to me before. I have weird situations that happen to me like that at times. One day I was sitting at the kitchen table. This is when I lived at the other house. And I hear this tap, 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 tap on my screen door. And then I'm like, I look out the window, there's nobody there, but I hear the tap, 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 tap on my door. And I'm like, what the heck? So I go to the door and I look out the window, and there's a peacock on my front porch knocking on my door. In fact, there wasn't just one peacock, there were two. One was up on the banister, but he was out of the line of sight and I didn't see him. And the other one was right there on the foot of my door, and she was tapping on the screen. Kind of funny stuff, right? And then, one time I also had a hawk do that, Debbie. It landed on my front porch. And because I know that's messenger, I knew that some kind of message was coming through. And I don't recall what that was about, but let's look at hawk spirit. It says, let spirit be your guide. The message says, flying high above the landscape, the hawk sees both the big picture and the small details, observes the rain and the pond as well as the cloud, and doesn't miss anything. When Hawk Spirit arrives, you are called to pay close attention to messages from Spirit that can appear anywhere in any form. Listen to your intuition and keep your eyes open for synchronicities, the meaningful coincidences. Hawk Spirit asks you not to dismiss the signs that Spirit is sending to guide you. Lately, have you been hearing the same word or song or coming across the same symbol here, there, and in the strangest places? Perhaps you hear a song on the radio with just the right lyric pertaining to your query, or you begin to notice uncanny billboards, license plates, or other places where repetitive numbers or words show up for you to notice. Pay attention to the animals that appear for you and connect with their symbolism. Spirit wants to communicate and reaches out again and again. When Hawk Spirit appears, it is a sign to listen. And it's really interesting for all of us because Debbie's on the show here with us. She has shared this with all of us. And wow, right? So thanks, Debbie, for bringing that to us this morning. Good morning, Tam. She said, I just heard exactly what I needed for my next meeting. Thank you. You're most welcome. And Mimi says, Debbie, Hawk is also confirmation of the good stuff for me. I hope the same for you from this messenger. Oh, woohoo, awesome. All right, so let me go back to my agenda and quit. Anybody have questions about Mercury squaring Mars or what that might mean for you personally? By the way, if you're an Aries, Mars is your ruling planet, so this may pertain to you, right? If you're a Scorpio, Mars is a co-ruler of your sign, and so may also pertain to you. And those of us who are Geminis and Virgos, Mercury is our ruling planet, so these words may apply to you in particular. But every one of you has those signs somewhere and those planets somewhere in your own chart. So it's not like you wouldn't be affected. It just means it might be harder to pin down how that may play out in your chart. So I don't see any questions here. So next we go on to Pluto in gate 61. So Pluto is an outer planet. And so when an outer planet changes signs, it really is something that we take note of because we know it's going to be there for a while. And indeed, when I checked out my little ephemeris, which heaven only knows what I've done with it now, I swear there are gremlins in my room, right? First of all, I have this piece of all my gene keys, my cheat notes, cliff notes, if you will. I put them in a sleeve, like a clear sleeve to protect it. I put it in my file. This is where all of the stuff is that I use for the morning show. And it isn't there this morning. Don't know what happened to it. It should be fit. Oh, there it is. It's on the floor. Found it. Well, anyway, I thought it was lost, but things like this always happen to me. I have no idea why that would end up on the floor. Who knows? And I swear to God, it wasn't there when I started the show because I was pacing back and forth here. So, oh well. Anyway, gate 61 and Pluto are in a connection. Pluto sitting at gate 61 for a long-term transit now, all the way up to September 11th of this year. So nigh on 9 months almost to the day exactly that we are going to be dealing with Pluto at the gate 61. So I think it's important for all of us to learn about what gate 61 is about, because it's really an interesting one. The gate 61, let me see if I can find a human design chart here. And gate 61 sits right here, right there. And actually, it moved into gate 61 on the 6th. So we see it's already. This is called the crown or the head center in human design. It's the center for inspiration and ideas. And the gate 61 sitting right here in the center is called the gate of awe and wonderment, the mystery. And it is a gate where the question that's always being asked, or the pressure for the question, is why? Why is this happening? Why do I need to do this? Anything that you can put the question why in front of is what this energy is about in this gate. In the gene keys, if we take now a holographic look at the mystery, the awe, the wonderment in this gate, it is in the lowest expression, psychosis, right? And in the next level, it is inspiration, right? And the third or the highest is sanctity. Now, I could swear that we've talked about this gate before, and I look back through all of the things that I've shared with you on the gene keys, and I didn't see. We may have touched on it briefly. We may have maybe Pluto moved there once for a short time, and then, I don't know. But it is going to be sitting here for a long time now. And since Pluto represents our transformation as a collective and represents the path of empowerment for each of us in that collective, then we're going to spend some time taking a look at the gate 61. So when we look at psychosis, psychosis is about the pressure of why. We become the victims of an obsessive mind. And that obsessive mind is where we are constantly hearing the same message. We could even say this whole idea that about immigration and this wall is coming from an obsessive mind, where there's a victim of the obsessed mind. But anywhere in your own life where you're finding yourself on this, always thinking about the same thing, always asking maybe, why me? Or why does this always happen? Why should I care? All of those kinds of fanatic, maybe not fanatic is a great word, but obsessive sort of thoughts that your mind takes you to is what we are looking at with this particular gate. And there are the two expressions, of course. We have the expression of the reactive nature in the gate, and we also have the more repressed nature in this gate, the way that we would express it as human beings. Now, remember, because there's a planet sitting at gate 61 now in every one of our charts, it is activated, right? You don't escape just because you look at your own human design. You go, oh, I'm safe because it's open. Nope. Now it's defined. And if you happen to have, like me, gate 24 at the other end, now the whole channel is defined, and it's the channel of contemplation. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. So when we look at the repressed expression of this particular gate, what we get are conformists. What we get are people who are hiding from the big questions, right? They're hiding from the big questions in life. And from the big questions in life, they feel disenchanted, right? There's a disenchantment, if you will. That's a word coming directly from the gene keys, not something from my own head, but disenchantment, where they're not in the magic and the flow of what gate 61 can bring, right? When we are open to the wonder and the awe without having to find the answers to why does the sun rise in the east and set in the west, we can, or why did the hawk land on Debbie's fence? Even though I still think that's a wonderful magical thing, and I don't want to take the magic away from that because it's magical, right? We're looking for the magic. But our people who are in the repressed state in this gate are going to be conformists. They're going to toe the party line. They're not going to think for themselves. They're not going to be able to use the moon in Aquarius to their advantage because they're too locked in the box, right? They're too locked in the box. They're too locked into the way things have always been. And that's the way it's always going to be. Why ask why, right? On the other end, the more reactive side, we get the fanatics, right? These are people who are fixed on an answer and they are sure that they're correct and there can't be any answer but that one. Fundamentalism gets kind of connected into this as well. And we end up becoming, again, victims of the obsessed mind. So when we take a look at the center that the gate is in, it would be called the crown, maybe the crown chakra, the head center. It's the very top center. And I want to show you something unique about the crown center. Notice that all of the other centers are well within the body framework here, right? You see the body and all of those centers are in the body. But this center is partly above the body and partly in the body. So we get an idea that this center here is what connects us to spirit, to higher knowing, to God, to source, to cosmic mind, whatever it is you want to call it. It is the part of us that is connected and has access to that energy that's coming in from the higher realms. And so the head center, or the crown center, is the path that we take from pressure to consciousness through the path of seeking. And seeking is a part of the quest for the answer why, right? It's part of the quest for the answer of what. And we have this right now combined with something else. I can't remember what was sitting at gate 54. The sun this week at gate 54, pressing us to take that journey to ask that question, right? To get enlightened, to get to the deeper places, to get to the truth, the ultimate truth. So a part of the pressure in the center, called the head center, where the gate 61 is for us to find a higher state of consciousness. So gate 61, Pluto, we are transforming to a higher state of consciousness. That's up at the high level. While we're on that path, seeking that higher consciousness, we're going to see a whole bunch of stuff, right? We're going to see every place out there in the world reflected back at us where we are not yet conscious, where consciousness hasn't taken place yet, where consciousness hasn't taken root yet. And, if there's just this interesting word that I come back to. I have this love-hate relationship with this word, and that word is ascension. And I think because it's overused and it's used in the wrong way, and it's just a crazy kind of word. But ultimately what it is a picture of for us is how we are raising our frequency, how we are becoming more and more conscious, right? So that's what all of this energy at gate 61, Pluto in the long term, is bringing us. So all of this is about the channel then of contemplation. It is where mystery is. In the highest expression, it's the mystery of the universe. And then it is in the lowest expression, down here in the shadow, in that channel, is this blankness where we don't know the answer. So we're trying to write something on that blank answer so we have an answer. But unfortunately, this is the place where we just write any old answer, right? When that channel is confirmed or completely defined, it means it's connected to the ajna, which then becomes the mind and a place where we get fixed thought. So we have to be very careful that we don't get into fixed thought, as various planets will come across the gate 24 this year. Or if you have gate 24 in your own human design defined, where now the whole channel of contemplation is. So we want to reserve some of the mystery. We want to have the awe and the magic and the mystery in our lives from the search that we're on to get to the higher answers. But on our way there, we don't want to get into this point of fanaticism where we think we found the answer and now we're going to go out, we're going to tell everybody this is the final answer. Or on the other end, where we get so tired of the seeking that we become disenchanted and then we just conform to the party lines because we don't know what else to do, right? So we're in a process then for the long haul here, or at least the next 9 months, which is interesting. Don't you think that's the gestation of a human baby, right? 9 months, a pregnancy, right? So we're in this gestation of birthing a higher consciousness. I like those words. I should write that down. So there you have it. How about anybody? How are you feeling pressures? Are you having any questions about what we're talking about? Let's see what people's comments are. Colleen, good morning. Fairies, they love to return stuff by throwing it on the floor. I know, they're little rascals, aren't they? There's something else I was missing this morning. What was it? And I went, I know I had that yesterday. I had it. What was it now? This happens to me all the time. And I don't know what the joke is. The joke is on Janet, I guess. But, maybe it's because I'm a Gemini and I jump from one thing to another. And maybe I don't put everything away at the right time, at this time. I don't know. I just don't know. Right? But there we go. Hey, Heather, good morning. It's good to see you this morning. I bet you're frozen up there in the, what is it, Edmonton or so, Canada that you're in. But it's great to see you. Let's see, anybody else with any questions? If not, I'm going to be done. But I love, of course, questions. Does anybody want me to pull another card? Let's just pull a card. And I'm going to use the Wisdom of the Oracle, right? This deck, I call it Bear and Read. And I'm going to use that because I think we all need some wisdom around what is going on with Pluto at gate 61 for us for the foreseeable future. In the meantime, if anybody has questions, please type them in there. I would be happy to answer them. Anything about what the moon in Aquarius means? What does it mean to have Mercury squaring Mars? What about Pluto at 61? Tomorrow's Wednesday. I will be here tomorrow morning. And tomorrow morning, we will dig into the shadow of gate 61 and see what that means. So I have this one upside down. It says, go the distance. It's a cheetah. It has the checkered flag. It's card number 47, which is an 11. Go the distance, right? Go the distance, but upside down. So in protection. So let's see what that means for us. Card 47. Hey, where's Suzanne? She hasn't been putting up our numbers for us. Funny thing, I just opened right up to 47. The essential meaning is endurance, strength, the long haul. So in protection, it says, do you feel as if you've been wandering in the desert now for ages and ages and nothing is happening? When you conjure up the image of a desert, you picture parched lips, sunburned skin, and mirages. But there is more to it than that. Amid the hot sands are creatures with resilient spirits, tough skins, and the willingness to burrow deep underground for water so that they may thrive. This is a time of developing survival skills and resilience. You are learning how to conserve your strength. And in this temporary time of austerity, it's wise to be selective about where you expend your energy. Listen to the call of your soul because it will never lead you astray. This is an important time for letting go of what's not important. Wow. Not sure how that plays into this, but But I'm going to take that message and I'm going to sit with it for a bit because it reminds me of something that I learned in my earlier studies of human design. And that was something called the 9 resilience keys. And that is a testament directly to each of the centers that you have. There are 9 energy centers within your human design template, and each one has a theme, a resiliency theme or a resiliency key. I might have to take that out and dust it off and work on that for the next couple of months, maybe 9 energy centers. 9 resiliency keys, 9 months until Pluto moves out of gate 61. I'm sensing a pattern here. So kind of fun, right? So maybe that's something that we'll be taking a look at. Good morning, Londa. She says tenacious, more like courage. Good morning, Patricia. Good to see you. Mimi says lots to contemplate with Pluto in 61. I feel it will be loaded with extremes. Anytime that we're talking about Pluto, there's the potential for extremes, right? Because we're transforming, and that means we're transforming from one state to another. And that is often a trip through the extremes, perhaps. And one of the things I noted in this card, Go the Distance, is about austerity and to use your resources wisely. That word austerity is kind of scary, but what it reminds me of is when we did the webinar for astrology of 2019, and we talked about the word for the year, which I really loved, and that is stewardship. And for each of us to become good stewards of our own energy, our own time, and our own money, not it with an eye to fear around scarcity, but to an eye to resourcefulness, right? And creating something that's sustainable. And face it, people, the world that we live in right now is not sustainable, right? We're faced with some dire dilemmas and big choices that we're going to have to make. And Pluto may be at this gate taking us through the dark night, right? The Pluto is the Lord of Hell, the god of the underworld, taking us through the dark night so that we can really see how bad things can get, so that we will be able to make the transformations necessary. And it, to me, that sounds sort of like the transitions that we go through when we are incubating a baby, if you will, a creative expression, right? The three trimesters, the first trimester where the body is really, all of the organs are built, all of these, the things that will be the human being are in place. The second trimester, fleshing that out, building it bigger. Then the third trimester, leading to the gaining of weight and the ability to be sustainable in the outer world. So we might be able to look at what Pluto's transit through the gate 61 means through those lenses as well. Like, what are we incubating right now? What is getting ready to be birthed? So anyway, lots to contemplate. Absolutely, Mimi. I totally agree. Londa, I'm not sure what tenacious and more like courage was that you were talking about. I always forget what I'm talking about because sometimes I'm just channeling whatever it is that comes up. And I have no memory of what it was I was saying before. So please tell me what you meant by courage and tenacious. If that's a question, I would be happy to answer it. If not, I think we have a lot, we've had a lot of food for thought today. But I also want to remind everybody about that Mercury square Mars. Watch your mouth, watch your thoughts. Do not be unconscious when you're behind the wheel. Watch for other people who are being a little bit unconscious, perhaps when they're behind the wheel or in their day-to-day world and speaking or doing things that are hurtful or harmful without thinking. Reminds you, or just a reminder to you that you could become the projected upon, because hopefully now with awareness, you will not be the one that is projecting. So, all right, Londa, I don't see anything else there. So, all right, everybody, I'm done for today. I will see you tomorrow morning. We'll take up a deeper look at the shadow of gate 61, which was psychosis. That ought to be fun. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day. Mwah! Much love to everybody. Bye for now.